Welcome everybody to another episode of Lockdown 23 and 1. Today I got another story about an inmate on inmate homicide. Usually whenever I bring stories like this your way, it's coming from a male prison. This, I believe, is the first of its kind on the channel, and coming from a female prison in Wisconsin. So before we get into this wild story, if this is what you're into, all things lockup and crime related, then this is where you want to be. Hit that like, subscribe, notification bell before you leave, and check out my playlist with many more videos for you to start watching today. Now, before we get into the prison and talk about the incident, let's speak about the victim. And that means we have to travel all the way back to 2006. This is Cindy Schultz Hiedes, and this is her husband, Kenneth E. Hiedes. Now, Kenneth was a pharmacist at the Memorial Healthcare in Medford. He was found dead on the morning of August 30th, 2006. Now, there wasn't no evidence for the most part in his murder, so it went unsolved for about 13 years until 2019, when Cindy Schultz, the wife, was arrested finally. Now, like I said, there wasn't that much evidence, but really I think she was convicted based upon her statements. It wasn't consistent and it kept changing throughout the years, because the detectives probably came back and forth asking questions over and over again. It's trying to solve the case, and of course, the wife, if you're innocent, is going to work with the law enforcement in any way possible. And that's usually people's downfall. They think they can handle the detectives, but they can't. And they tend to screw up their story and end up in jail. Like Miss Cindy here, she's a perfect example. But she was eventually sentenced to life in prison. And that's where some people can say fate came back around. Now, little did she know, about 3 years down the road, she's going to run into this girl, Taylor Sanchez. Doing a little research, I found a list of her crimes. And it looks like all these crimes were committed around the same time, because the disposition dates are all between the year 21 and 22. This right here is the most recent photo of her, and to be completely honest, she does not look like a killer. Another perfect example, though, of never judging a book by its cover. Now that we got a little background on the two individuals and why they're locked up, let's speak about the prison. Taycheedah Correctional Institution, established in 1921. It was known as the Wisconsin Home for Women until 1975. The facility houses maximum security and medium security adult females with an average population of 936. So this is a higher level prison, which makes sense because Cindy was sentenced to life in prison. Not to mention who's about to become her cellmate, Taylor Sanchez, seems to be having a hard time behind bars. Some of her crimes were battery and threat to a judge, resisting and obstructing an officer, battery by prisoner. It seems like she's snapping off in lockup. That's who Miss Cindy's about to have in her cell sleeping with her. And this is how it goes in prison. Male, female, it doesn't matter. Sometimes you just don't know who the hell's about to be walking in your cell. They could look normal as sunlight and have a smile from ear to ear. Look like a damn good partner in spades. Next thing you know, you're getting killed by them. That's the deal about prison. Even out here in the streets, man, you gotta be careful with strangers. But anyways, it turns out Taylor Sanchez has a bit of a mental condition. And that's how a lot of inmates are. They're taking psych meds. Anybody that's been locked up, when that pill call comes around, the line becomes pretty long sometimes. Not all of it's for psych meds, some of it's for blood pressure and stuff, but there are a lot of people on those type of medications. And if they stop taking them, man, I've told stories in the past about some people, they completely change. Whole new personality. And that's what I believe took place in this story. Not to mention, don't forget, I got a story, personal one, to go with it. Now, the article reads, Taylor Sanchez, 27, faces a charge of first-degree intentional homicide for the death of Cindy Schultz Hiedes. Cindy was found unresponsive in her cell at Taycheedah Correctional Institute on July 19, 2023. The criminal complaint states before she was found, other inmates near the cell reported hearing noises that sounded like a scuffle and banging. And if you've been locked up and you read something like that, those sounds would flood into your memory bank very quickly, like it's doing to me right now. That scuffle and banging sound when someone's fighting in a cell, one of the most eerie things you could hear, man, because you don't know if someone's going to die or not. Now, when questioned by officers following the incident, Sanchez said, I hit her with my hands and my feet. I started to hear voices telling me to kill her. A conversation was recorded between Sanchez and her mother. In that conversation, Sanchez reportedly said, I stopped taking my meds and I started hearing voices again, Mom. She continued saying that she thought her cellmate, Cindy, was using her toothbrush to clean the toilet. And man, have I seen some fights behind that. because people found out they were actually doing it. But it seems like she's just going off of the voices in her head. She has no proof that she was actually using that toothbrush to clean toilets. According to the Wisconsin Department of Corrections website, Sanchez was serving a 2-year sentence for a battery conviction from Kenosha County. And that's another major red flag, that she's just going through a mental breakdown or something. Because nobody that's just facing 2 years, which with good time is like a year and a half, who knows how it is in Wisconsin, who in their right mind would kill their cellmate and risk getting a life sentence. Either they're mentally unstable or they did it on accident. That's only 2 options here if you're to ask me. Well, I guess there's really 3 options. You could be forced as well. Now, Cindy's autopsy came back and her cause of death was head trauma. Turns out Taylor Sanchez left her with multiple skull fractures after punching and stomping her repeatedly. And you know, as you get older, your bones weaken. She was 68 years old, so if I were to guess, it wouldn't have taken much to break any bone on her body. And that's another reason why I never fought older individuals in prison, man, because I knew I could win. I'll just let them run their mouth and say what they want to say. I ain't gonna risk killing them. That's how a normal person with something to lose thinks. Not Taylor Sanchez. She just kept beating her until she was dead. Now, under offender details for Miss Taylor Sanchez, it seems like she's living in a supervised living facility. I don't know exactly what that means, but that's the address. When I searched that address, it brought me to another prison, but I've never heard of a prison called supervised living facility. Maybe it's just a different term. To me, I thought it might have been the psych ward. And for sure, I think that's where she should be. But that's the bulk of it, and you know, this really just goes to show you, even in a women's prison all the way down in Wisconsin, you could get got. So be careful, ladies out there in the cells with a new cellmate. But like I said, I got a personal story to go with this. Coming once again from Chesapeake City Jail. That was the first adult jail that I went to with my serious crime, so I was in there for quite a bit of time. And I believe, if I remember correctly, this is the first time I seen a mental breakdown because someone stopped taking their medicine. This dude happened to be probably like 5'10", heavy set with dreads, black guy. And it was like an 8 or 10 man cell with 4 or 5 bunk beds in it, with a big plexiglass window so you could see outside in the open pod. He also had these teal metal doors with a glass vertical window. And those doors, you could shove certain pieces of things into it to make it to where they don't lock. But sometimes if you don't do it right, the light will show up as unlocked in the booth. So the CO come on the intercom and say, lock and close your door. But if you do it right, it'll show as locked. But anyways, I went a little too deep into the cell door story. It's lockdown time, right? And everybody's going to their cell. And the guy that we're going to be talking about is the last one in. He's got psych issues, right? He goes and takes psych medications every single day. Sometimes he don't take it and he becomes wild, filled with energy and rage. Anyways, inside the cell is like 3 white guys. And the dude with the psych issues, who got the white guy as a bunkie, gets up to brush his teeth, and as he's like in the mirror area of the sink brushing his teeth, he's just kind of standing there looking around weird. It's a closed cell, so if you see any kind of movement, someone get out there bunk to do something, people are watching him. So he's just standing there looking around, holding his toothbrush, about to brush his teeth, and all of a sudden he snaps off on his bunkie. Claims that his bunkie, some little weak frail dude, scrubbed the toilet with his toothbrush, and now he wants to fight him. Right, the guy's on the bunk. I'll never forget. The guy's on the bunk because he was on the bunk on that's sitting on the wall. It was pressed right against the wall. So the white dude's out there reading a book like this with his knees up and his shower shoes at the foot of the bed. Keep in mind the shower shoes. We're gonna get there. So dude's up in this little like fetal position up against the wall reading a book, and homeboy comes at him with this issue. Dude's looking at him like, I promise, man, I didn't do none of this stuff. So guy grabs one of his shower shoes and raises it up, says, get up off that bunk. Dude don't want to get off the bunk. You hear other guys in the cell now saying, bro, chill out. He ain't do that, man. Chill. And that's kind of a misconception when it comes down to lockup. Believe it or not, there's a lot of inmates that will stand up against people bullying someone. Or if it's just something that ain't right, you'd be surprised who come in and try to stop it. That's a topic for another video later on down the road, because someone asked me, how do inmates respect, booty bandits? And we don't. Trust me, we don't. Taking advantage of the weak is not cool. People turn a blind eye, but some people stand up. Like I said, people you probably never even talked to. Anyways, dude's terrified. You can tell his blood's pumping Kool-Aid. He ain't getting off the bunk. Shit, I'm a little scared for him myself. But the multiple guys that kind of spoke up and said chill the hell out, it seemed to have worked. He didn't even end up brushing his teeth, he just went back to his bunk, and everything was pretty quiet from then on. Now everyone's thinking the same thing, man. It's done and over with. Dude was just blowing off some hot steam, losing his marbles a bit. Now lockdown's over, the doors are being popped for everyone to leave. Homeboy on the top rack, I don't know if he didn't want to leave or he was just too scared to get off his bunk, but he stayed in the cell, and so did the guy with the psych issues. He closed the door behind everyone when they left, and that's when you hear the commotion, man. Homeboy started putting hands on guy because he thought that he scrubbed the toilet with his toothbrush. COs were there almost instantly because at the time, COs were inside the pod at their own desk. Anything jump off, man, they were there with a quickness. But that just goes to show you, even if you don't put your 2 cents into nothing, you're minding your business, you might have someone with psych meds as a bunkie that's gonna think you're brushing stuff with his toothbrush. So when I was reading this story, man, all the memories came flooding back. And I've told many stories in the past about inmates, getting off their medications and turning into different people. Shoot, I seen it firsthand with rapper Mike. He stopped taking his meds a few times and man, it went downhill real quick. But he's out and free and doing good now, so hopefully he keeps it up. One of the most interesting cellmates I've ever had in my life. The first time I ever met him, he said he got his head punched by a reptilian and it spun around 720 degrees. I said, come on down, man. I got a bunk open right here. But hopefully you enjoyed today's episode. Stay tuned. I got plenty more content coming your way. As a matter of fact, I got to change the beat a bit, jump to the comedic side of things. I don't know what's going on in prisons these days, but there's been a lot of inmate on inmate homicides. Prayers go out to anybody that's starting a fresh bid or is still in there doing time. Until the next time, though, as always, y'all be easy, be safe, and stay free.